Good morning. Hello. Happy Wednesday. It is a Wednesday. Wednesday is a day. Let's shut some things off. Okay, so I made it. I am very proud of me for that. So we're just gonna go with it. I do, of course, have a delivery that I'm waiting for, that I've been waiting on all day. And of course, it is going to wait until right in the middle of this live stream to arrive. So I might have to dip very quickly to go accept the delivery really quick. But that is the day we are having, because if we did not just push through and hope for the best today, then I don't know when I would be able to make up this stream that has already been, unfortunately, rescheduled like twice now. So we're gonna do what we can with what we got. We are going to jump into these flashcards and we're just gonna keep going, keep our heads up, keep going, watching the camera. We're just gonna make it work. So hello, thank you for coming. Today we're going to sip some coffee. I am finally feeling a little bit better, so I am back on the coffee. If you are still on tea, that is great. I have been craving a really good Earl Grey lately. So we'll see what we do with that information coming up. So if you are part of the replay crew, welcome, love you. I will have timestamps down below in the description for you. But before we get into any of that, if this is your first time here, hello, hi. I am Terrell, and this is Absolutely Studying. I like to chat about study tips, organizational hacks, and goal setting, just to keep you on track and making the progress that you want to make. Today, we are talking about flashcards, more specifically 10 fantastic ways to use flashcards to boost your study session. Afterwards, we can have a little chit chat. I do like to get through all of the content first before I stop to talk about any chat, so you can chat amongst yourselves, but I'm going to largely focus on just staying focused, because I will never get through the information between my like sidelines and my interjections and my digressions. I have to stay focused and keep going. So we're going to do the article, go through all of that. And then if you have any questions and you want to chat at the end, I will make sure that I'm available for a little bit and we can have a little chit chat, have a little kiki, have a little conversation. So before we dive in, I'm going to share my screen and dive in. And while I am doing that, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. I have big things that I want to do and I have coming for 2023. This year change is a whole thing. It is a whole vibe. It is a whole thing. We're gonna get to this. So 10 fantastic ways. When we say fantabulous ways to boost your study session, we're going to talk about 10 ways to use flashcards, because flashcards are an incredibly effective study tool, but are they better than just your notes? So flashcards are a staple for the savvy student. They are the best way to quiz yourself in a pinch or fit in a quick study session on a busy day. One of the best things about flashcards is that they are highly customizable and can be used just about anywhere. Now, the link to this article and any of the stuff that I talk about in it, any of the stuff that links that I discuss in it, are all linked in the description so that you can check those links out for yourself as well. These study tools are incredibly portable, so they're terrific on the go. They come in endless forms, from physical cards that you can make all the way to pre-programmed digital ones. They require little to no setup and do not cause a mess. They're really great in a pinch if you only have 5 or 10 minutes to study and you want to fit in a quick study session. And one of the best things about flashcards are that they are an active recall when you are using them as flashcards. They're a great active recall program. So it is teaching you how to retrieve information you've already learned. rather than learning new information. And that is one of the things that is tested during exams when you're actually taking exams on the subject. Flashcards have many uses. If used correctly, they are an excellent tool for memorizing the information you need. Understandably, they can get boring after a while. Sometimes you just need to mix it up. There are many ways to use flashcards, so let's discuss 10 fantastic ways to use flashcards to boost your study session. These strategies will help you to improve recall and create memory cues that you can rely on during test time. Flashcards are highly effective, but a lot of students overlook them. This is probably because the flexibility and versatility of these tools are often ignored. If you're looking to make a study guide that is actually useful and structured, don't forget to download my free study planner and activity tracker. There are more than 20 study activities and 8 templates to help you organize and plan your study sessions for your study strategy for every class. Download it here. Now, I actually just recently updated this study planner. Now, when you download it, there is also a shorthand template that you can use to create your own shorthand with it. So now has, I think, 9 or 10 pages. So it was just within the last, I think, week updated. So yeah, if you want to grab a study planner template, it's like a study guide template to create your own study guide, definitely check that out. And the link for that is down in the description as well. So what are flashcards and how are they effective? Flashcards are small cue-style cards used to test your memory and recall on a given topic. They're usually 5 by 3-inch rectangular pieces of cardstock. Several programs can also help you create flashcards in a digital format for your phone or tablet. On one side of the card, there is generally a prompt or question, while the other side holds the answer. When using flashcards, you usually shuffle through reading the question and testing yourself by answering it from memory. When using flashcards, you usually shuffle through the deck, reading the question and testing yourself by answering it from memory. This is important in many areas of study because it tests the strength of your memory associated with each concept and how fast you can answer it. So let's pause there and break that down for a second. Essentially, when you're using a flashcard, do I have one? I don't have one handy. When you're using a flashcard, let me just grab this postcard, this Post-it note, and we will use that as an example. So say this is your flashcard, and they're usually a little bit longer. But on the one side, you have, don't look at my nails. I didn't do my nails this week. I was sick. On one side, you'll have a prompt. So you'll have a word or a diagram or a terminology or a question. And then on the other side, you have an answer. So you go through and you read these prompts and you ask yourself the questions, and then you try to recall the answer from memory. And so you recall it, you say it out loud or whatever it is, and then you flip it over and you see if you were right or wrong. So that is the general method of using flashcards. Are flashcards better than notes? To answer simply, yes. Flashcards focus on active recall. This means flashcards focus on active recall. This means you are not only testing if you remember the material under study, but if you can also retrieve it coherently. The purpose is not to memorize the answers verbatim, but to be able to explain a concept or answer a question when asked. It also helps to test how quickly and confidently the information can be retrieved, which is imperative during test time. So that is the trick, is can you remember and communicate the information coherently and effectively? And that's what it is. So the purpose is not to simply memorize what's on the front and back of your flashcards. You want to be able to explain it. So if you have a question on the front of your flashcard, and then when you are going through and answering it, if you don't say the answer word for word, that's okay, as long as you can explain it coherently. So you want to explain it effectively enough, well enough that your points, the understanding that you're trying to make, is getting across to the other person, and you can make yourself clear. That is the important thing. So it's not about memorizing what's on the flashcards. It's all about using the prompts to trigger recall and then communicating the answer. So first things first, how do you make your own flashcards from the information in your notes? Making your own flashcards rather than purchasing pre-made ones is an excellent study activity. This gives you time to customize each card to your specific learning style. It also gives you the ability to control the focus of the deck. It also gives you the ability to control the focus of the deck. You can customize flashcard decks to go in depth and add more questions and concepts. You can customize flashcard decks to go in depth and add more questions about concepts you don't yet understand or struggle with. You can also go lighter on material that you're comfortable with, or set these cards aside as you progress. So let's start with the end sentence and work backwards. So when you make your own flashcards, again, you can make a ton of flashcards on each section of your notes. And as you get really comfortable with a particular concept or question, you can start removing those questions from your notes and putting those aside from your deck of flashcards and putting those aside. So as you get smaller and smaller and smaller on your active deck that you are working on getting fluent with, your confident deck is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so maybe you go through the deck that you are nervous about every day, and then you go through your confident deck every week. And you're just shuffling things back and forth. So if you forget something from your confident deck, you can move it back into your active deck. And if you start answering, just know a handful of the things in your active deck, you can move them to your confident deck. So that way you are really spending more time focusing on what you don't know very well yet, while you still remember to go back and just kind of check in and make sure that the things that you are confident with, that you do know well, you still know well, so that you're not forgetting to cover them. Also, with making your own, this is a study session. So you can do this instead of going through and reading your textbook or going through and recopying out your notes. This is something that you can do in a study session by sitting down and making flashcards that might be a little bit disruptive to your study routine. And I don't mean disruptive in a bad way. I mean disruptive in a way that it's changing things, it's shaking it up. You're not doing the same activities every single time. This is something that can be rotated in, so that you're constantly bringing in new cards. You're constantly making cards on new topics, and you're not doing the same thing where you're just reading your textbook and writing out notes every single day. Now you're going through and skimming through or scanning through your notes and creating flashcards, and then adding those flashcards to your decks. So that is something that is different. It's different. It's new and exciting, and a little bit more interesting, that you don't necessarily do every single day. Maybe you do that, a couple times a week. And each card you can make specifically for your learning style. So if you are a more visual learner, you can make lots of cards with diagrams on them. If you are a more systematic learner, you can make lots of cards with processes on them. If you are having trouble with terminology, you can really focus on a whole bunch of terminology flashcards. The deck can be structured in a way that best suits your learning style. And by creating your own flashcards rather than going out and buying them or downloading them from online, you then can tailor those more so than you would be able to if you just downloaded a pre-made deck. If you don't have time, if you find that you are constantly like running out of time, downloading a pre-made deck is still helpful, but this is an alternative that can also get you a few extra study sittings. Use class and textbook notes as a guide when creating your flashcards. After completing the final copy of your notes, go through and pull all of the important terms and points from them. This usually includes all of the vocabulary and terminology, any hypotheses or theories that you may come across, names, dates, places, and most importantly, essential points. Create a deck of flashcards specific to your study needs. This will make what you quiz yourself on directly related to what you studied in class. What you focus on in your notes and took away from your textbook is what you will concentrate on. By creating your deck of cards directly from your textbook, by creating your deck of cards directly from your textbook, you will be able to design a study strategy focused on your strengths and confidence level with the material. So now we finally get into the best part of this entire article, this entire live stream, this entire episode, and that is 10 ways to use flashcards to boost your study session. So adding flashcards is a fun, active recall activity that you can use to boost nearly any study session. Flashcards are an opportunity to step away from your desk and study anywhere. You can use them on the go with friends and even with a study group. The possibilities are nearly endless. With flashcards, you can really have fun with your study activities. You can quiz yourself and do something light or set a timer and put the pressure on. There's a ton of flexibility in how you can use them, and that is precisely what I want to talk about today. So let's dive in. So method number one of flashcards is to quiz yourself by asking the question on the front of the flashcards. This I discussed a little bit right in the beginning, but let's actually get into the details. Now that you have your own personalized deck of flashcards created, we can focus on the activities. The traditional method of using flashcards is adding questions to the face of the card with the answers on the back. This is a solid strategy. Quizzing yourself in this way is a consistent and dependable active recall activity. If you are actively testing your ability to retrieve and relay the information, words are hard. Words are hard every day, but words are very hard today. Quizzing yourself in this way is a consistent and dependable active recall activity. You are actively testing your ability to retrieve and relay the information you have been studying in real time. By posing the question, you are assessing the mental associations you have created to retrieve the material from your memory stores. This is the best way to study for tests or exams. So when you write the question on the front, so this goes beyond just terminology where you write a word on the front. When you actually write a question, like what is the process of this? What is the process of that? What date did this happen? When you're actually asking these questions, you're testing the entire mental memory cue framework that you have created for that concept. So now you have all of this information that comes rushing out. Now you have to go through all of those memory cues, all of those mental associations, all of the information that has come to the forefront, and you have to extract what is new, what's important, what you want to use as your answer and then give that answer. So this is all done in real time because you're not sitting there and, working out an answer. You only have one thing in front of you, and that's that flashcard. So that's the only thing you're focused on. So in real time, how well and how quickly can you pull that information, formulate an answer, and say it, communicate it? Make sure you create several cards. Make sure you create several cards for each fact. Create cards with different phrasing of the questions and various aspects of each concept. The best way to prepare for exams is to anticipate and answer problems in several distinct ways. You're putting yourself directly in your professor's shoes when you rephrase the questions in several ways. Try to get inside their mind and figure out how they will ask you the questions. This will help you prepare for anything that could be on the exam. So when you're making the exam, you're putting yourself in the place of the professor or the instructor. What do I feel like is important enough to ask the student? What do I want to know that they know? Those are the things you want to focus on with your flashcards, and even some trick questions or things that tackle like fundamental ideas. Those are all the things you want to put on your flashcard. Anything you think the professor will say is testable, and in any way the professor will test it. So if you have a professor that loves doing multiple choice, then write the question with 5 multiple choice on the front and then try and retrieve from it. And make sure that those 5 multiple choice are things that are really, really close to it. Or again, just open-ended questions as well. So make sure that you're asking the questions in a whole bunch of different ways. In that study planner that I have, there is a quiz template. And so on that, there is a fact. Say that there's a fact that you want to make sure that you remember. And then there is an activity where you can rephrase 4 or 5 different questions for that one fact. And that's what you want to be doing when you're doing flashcards. So if you have one thing like, what is the Krebs cycle? Don't just have one flashcard that says, what is the Krebs cycle? Go through and try and make as many questions about each step in that process and as many questions about it as you possibly can, because then your brain is going to create that many more links to the answer and try and anticipate any way that the professor could possibly ask you that question to get you to that answer. The second activity would definitely be to test yourself by asking the answer on the back of the flashcard. So once you have memorized a particular set of flashcards, turn them over and try quizzing yourself by reading the solution. Questioning yourself Jeopardy style is a brilliant way to ensure that you can understand and work with the concepts rather than just committing the deck of cards to memory. While it's essential to have a strong understanding of the answer to any question, flipping over the deck and trying to guess the question from the answer will assure that the mental association works both ways. This is another exercise to reinforce these pathways. Being able to connect the question starting from the information given in the answer is going to make sure that this road does not lead only one way. Can you figure out which term to use from its definition? You will never know if you don't flip the card over and quiz yourself on it. So let's discuss an example of this. So basically, perfect example, and this is this you learn in high school biology, and it will follow you throughout your, if you take biology, it will follow you, period. So for example, if you have on the front of a card the word mitochondria, or what is the mitochondria, and then you have on the back of the card the powerhouse of the cell. So when you flip that card over, if you just read the powerhouse of the cell as the prompt, will you then also be able to know that it's the mitochondria? So it's essentially just reading the answers and then making sure that you can ask the question, you know what it is talking about from the answer. So it's literally just flipping the card over, reading the answer, and then answering by asking the question. And again, this is to avoid depending on memorization. So if you memorize the deck of cards going in one direction, just asking the question and regurgitating the answer every single time, then if you flip it over, some of those are going to be tricky because you just know question to answer associations. That's all you know, question to answer, because you didn't necessarily learn it, you memorized it. So now making sure that it goes both ways. If you read the answer, can you come to the question? So it's just making sure that that goes both ways. That pathway can be traveled both ways. It's not a river, it's a path. Next, have a friend quiz you with your flashcards. If you've been following me for a while, you already know that I am not a huge fan of study groups. Study groups can often be a wasteland of productivity. It can be a full-time job just to keep all members focused. Generally, 1 or 2 students are usually responsible for the workload of the entire group. Flashcards, however, can sometimes be an exception to this rule. Having a friend or 2 quiz you puts you in the hot seat. With the spotlight on, you'll feel more anxious when you are than when you're just quizzing yourself. Familiarizing yourself with this discomfort early will help to quell some anxiety at exam time. Having a friend test you can also discourage confirmation bias and sneaking a peek at a tricky question's answer. This will force you to come up with a solution on the spot. Your friends are going to hold your feet to the fire. They will pull that answer out of you or possibly lead you to it. This means you won't go straight to the answer. And even if you don't get it right on the first try, you can still have some help finding your way to the correct response. This is an excellent alternative for people who always study alone and silently. Just remember to stay focused and on task, even between giggles with your bestie. So if you have a friend quiz you, this can be a great thing, especially if you're using your own cards so you are familiar with it, because now you have your friend quizzing you. So the first thing that I noted was the confirmation bias. There are going to be times as a human, as much as you want to stop yourself from doing this, we are stuck in a cycle of confirmation bias. So there are going to be times where you answer a question. The answer you give is not quite right. But when you read the answer on the flashcard, you're going to say, that's what I meant. And so the problem is that without an extra step to actually amend the answer from the flashcard to the answer that you gave, without taking an extra step or two, it's not going to actually update in your memory. It's confirmation bias. Your brain's going to be like, yeah, I got it right. Let's move on. And it's not going to learn from it. If you have a friend sitting there and holding you accountable to your answers, they're going to say, that's not what the flashcard said. And that way they can either discuss the correct answer with you, they can give you the correct answer and you can explain to them the difference, or you can just chat. You can explain how your answer is the right answer and try and validate it and confirm it with them and see if they can understand the difference between what you were saying and what you were trying to communicate between what was written on the card, because it might just be that you didn't get it wrong, but that you didn't effectively communicate your point. And in either case, whether you didn't get the question quite right or you didn't effectively communicate your point, in either case, you're not going to be there when the marker is grading your exam to make that argument. And so your question's just going to get marked wrong. So by being able to clarify to your friend and therefore also on the exam exactly what you meant, and why it's correct, that's going to help you get the mark. The next thing is that, yeah, sometimes it is lonely studying alone all the time. And while so often study groups are problematic in regards to productivity, study groups, a whole bunch of people studying together, is generally a problem because it's so hard to choose people who are going to stay focused and on task every single time, all of the time. So having something like flashcards where you are testing each other, or something active like that, having an active, structured activity that you're doing, is going to help in staying on task, staying focused, and actually having a successful group study session. Try drawing cycles on your flashcards to make sure you memorize the sequence of a specific purpose, of a specific process. Try drawing out the sequence for dynamic events and quizzing yourself on the labeling. Being able to visually see events and label them from memory will be really helpful at test time. Creating these processes without reference is useful to be able to sufficiently elaborate on a test. Draw the cycle on the front of the card with numbered labels on the back. When you come to that flashcard, name the specific location for as many points as possible. Cycles, events, and processes often must be remembered in order. You will never know if you have memorized your notes in the correct order by simply reviewing them. The only way to see if you can recall it is by actually testing yourself. Flashcards give you that opportunity. So that's something that you might not immediately consider putting on a flashcard, is a cycle or a illustration or a diagram, and actually labeling the points that you're supposed to remember. But it can definitely go on flashcards, and it can definitely be quizzed. Quiz yourself on how well you can decipher a diagram. Diagrams are vital to the visual learner. You can often describe ideas much more precisely in pictures than words. If you have illustrations in your notes to help convey your ideas, add them to your flashcards. Number any missing labels and add them to the back so you can quiz yourself on the diagram's content and the illustration itself. You can also use these diagrams as prompts for a brain dump. When you come across these illustrations, write down everything you can remember about it. Take the time to describe anything you can place in these diagrams. Take the time to describe anything you can place in these diagrams, and then check what you missed on the back. Flashcards don't need to be stuffy or strictly tied to words and phrases. You can use any diagram to convey any piece of information. Use it to define terminology. For example, draw a muscle with the bone it inserts on, attaches to, and its antagonistic muscle. Put all these critical landmarks on the back of the card. Now, when you flip through your flashcards, you can quiz yourself and how well you know this particular piece of anatomy. So not only can you just answer flashcards verbally, you can also use pen and paper. So if you do come across a diagram, whether it's the front or the back of the card, whip out a piece of paper and try redrawing that diagram and actually placing the landmarks from memory. And then when you flip it over, you can see, did you get it correct? Were you able to actually identify all of those pieces? Diagrams are often on exams, and labeling and landmarking these important points is going to be part of your exam, like most definitely. They are also a great tool for when you are writing answers in exams, to be able to have the ability to use a diagram in a long answer question to really explicitly explain what you are trying to say, even when you can't quite come up with the words, is really helpful, because your point will be so much more clear if you can show it especially if you have trouble saying it or writing it or communicating it in that way effectively. Flashcards are made for terminology. Understanding terminology is imperative to learning the language of the course. New words should immediately be added to flashcard decks so you can quiz yourself on their definitions. Being able to accurately define and use these words is imperative to being able to accurately relay your answers. Using the terminology when you explain yourself on the exam indicates to the professor that you know the language of the course and can use it fluently. This will prove that you have a solid understanding of the material. So there are going to be words in the course, either vocabulary or terminology. They can be used interchangeably. There are going to be words in the course, and rather than spending 2 or 3 sentences trying to explain that one concept, you can just use one word. And by being able to use that word properly, you're going to be able to you're going to be able to show the professor that you know what you're talking about. You're able to use those words, you're able to use those concepts. And this is why, this is exactly why the timestamps will be so valuable below. Okay, technical difficulties aside, let's just hop back in. Create comparison questions for concepts. Questions comparing both similar and different concepts are great for flashcards. Comparing theories is a fantastic way to force yourself to think critically about a topic. Analyzing ideas and how they relate to each other helps to display your knowledge of a subject. Creating and linking mental associations is also terrific for cementing your understanding and ease of recall. One very effective way to prove your understanding of a concept is to be able to clearly compare it against another similar concept. This only works when you can clearly define specific points that are similar and different, and how each attribute contributes to the difference or similarities in that concept. Professors love answers like this because it shows off just how much you've taken in during this class and how confident you are in the material. So what am I saying here? Often you're going to be learning about a concept. Let's take something very, very basic, and we'll just talk about leaves. Say you're learning about leaves. Now, obviously, while you are learning about the leaves or needles on a coniferous tree, you're going to immediately link that back to how trees how the leaves of other trees or other plants appear and how they're the same and different, or how the leaves are different from mushrooms or anything like that. Being able to clearly define what is the same and what is different about 2 concepts, about 2 things, will help you to explain ideas better and more directly. So say you are talking about, the leaves on a violet flower, and you are talking about how there's little hairs on the leaves of the violet flowers, and you relate that back to how there are hair on some types of ferns, but then you explain how those hair are similar, but then also how they're drastically different. And even though they're drastically different, those little similarities can help you make a point. So if you can make a point through a comparison and then also explain why those things are not alike, it's really, really helpful. And that, again, is something that is a little bit more effective in a long answer question or in like an assignment or term paper. But being able to do that is still really, really helpful. And you never know what you're going to have to write an essay on in a final exam. Trade flashcard decks with friends and classmates. Once you have exhausted your own flashcards, trade decks with your friends and hold on, I just want to double check. We did all of this, right? We did all of this. Yeah, we did all this. Sorry, that's the brain. Something shiny happened, and that's the brain. Trade flashcards decks with friends and classmates. Once you have exhausted your own flashcards, trade decks with your friends. This will allow you to quiz yourself on the same information from a different viewpoint. Your friends will have diverse perspectives on the information and another way of phrasing the prompts. This will help you to prepare for exam time when you have no control over which questions you're asked or how. You may also find that your classmates have focused on different topics than you did. This will expose you to information that you might have initially thought irrelevant. It's always fascinating to see what was important from the perspectives of your colleagues. It's even better to see how they phrased questions compared to yours. Both are significant benefits. When you trade flashcards, you hold your mental associations up to someone else's perspective of the information. This will test them to see if they are as strong as you believe they are. Can you hold up to unfamiliar questions and someone else's way of thinking? Are the pathways strong enough to still link you to the correct information and retrieve it with these newly rephrased questions? So this was always a challenge for me in a couple of ways. Being able to understand somebody else's question is already tough in its own right. Looking from somebody else's perspective at how they see the information it can be a challenge. I preferred personally, and this is just me personally, I preferred to actually trade card decks with the other person because I have to be able to see the information. If you give me a verbal flashcard question, it does not work for me, not at all. Now, if I give you a verbal question and then we discuss it, that works for me, but I have to be able to see the card, see the question in order for it to come into my brain. Otherwise, it does not exist. If I can't see it, it does not exist. So that was a bit of a challenge for me. So I would not be very effective with people when they had their flashcards that I'd never seen before and they gave me a question and then I was expected to answer it. I could not do it. I would fail the easiest of questions because I can't see it. But if I asked them a question and then then they answered it and we discussed it, or they asked me my question and that I'd already seen before, and we discussed it, then that would be helpful for me. So this can work in a couple of different ways. Now, it's also important because now this is your first look at the information from someone else's perspective. So how are they phrasing their questions? Could the professor also phrase the questions in this way? That's really important. And they get the same kind of sneak peek from your notes. Is that how did you look at the information? How did you rephrase your questions? And how is that different from what they focused on? And there's a lot of times where you guys won't even focus on the same concepts and you will look at their information and you'll be like, where did that come from? But that is the benefit of sharing your study strategies with your friends. Create a deck of flashcards specifically for brain dumps. Brain dumps are a great way to routinely test how much information you can recall on demand. With this exercise, you sit down with a blank piece of paper, set a timer, and simply write out everything you can remember on any given topic. I often suggest doing this weekly for at least one or two concepts. Keeping a running list in your notes of diagrams, terminology, or concepts that you can use as prompts will help you keep track of the material to quiz yourself with. This way, you are fresh and you do not have to sneak a peek at your notes before the brain dump. Alternatively, If you can use a deck of flashcards, alternatively, you can use a deck of flashcards specifically for this purpose. Just shuffle your deck and pick out a few random cards. Using the question or the selected flashcards, proceed to do your brain dump as usual. Choosing a concept in this way will make the selection more random. There will not be any biases that influence you to select material that you feel more comfortable with, reinforcing mental association pathways that might already be well established. You'll have a better chance of choosing topics. What is with topics? Topics that are less familiar and thus need more attention. Quiz yourself out loud for more memory cues. The more senses you involve in your study routines, the more cemented the information will be. Quizzing yourself out loud will add extra levels of memorization, and quizzing yourself out loud will add extra levels of memorization, and reading the card aloud adds both production and auditory levels of understanding. Mixing in pictures, charts, and words will change the visual cues. Keeping all of your senses engaged in the study session will help to cement the information and aid in the ease of recall. This all translates to easier retrieval of the material when tested. Ultimately, that's what's essential. You sit in the lecture hall and you read your textbooks preparing for your final exam. You can study this information over and over. Still, you cannot retrieve it quickly when the stakes are high. Still, if you cannot retrieve it quickly when the stakes are high and the exam is right in front of you, then all of this doesn't matter. While writing 2 or 3 hour exams is not always easy, the best way to demonstrate. While writing 2 or 3 hour exams is not always the best way to demonstrate your knowledge or understanding of the topic, it's what we have to work with for now. Practicing testing, and recall will be the best preparation for this grueling session. Flashcards are a fun activity to help you ease through the transition from learning the material to acing that exam. Flashcards are a fantastic learning tool. They can be inserted into study sessions to break up your time with more engaging tasks while completing your revision. They are an excellent active recall activity that helps you directly increase your test scores by quizzing you and your mental associations in real time. It's boring reading through your textbook and taking notes every day. Make flashcards and schedule them into one of your Pomodoro slots to break up the monotony. Choose different activities to do with your flashcards so you're not caught up in the same routine. If you need help creating your study strategy, pick up my free study guide template. This will help you plan a study strategy to feel confident in the material as you march towards your final exam. You can download it in the description below. It also has, on the activity tracker for each concept, it does have several spots to indicate that you have done flashcard sessions. And in the Pomodoro planners, it has various different, and it also has a Pomodoro planner. And on the Pomodoro planner, it will show you, on the Pomodoro planner, you can plan ahead of time what activities you're going to do in each study session. So it is a block, it's a 2-hour study block that you get to plan out, and it actually shows you what concept, what activity you're going to do. So if you just keep all of your chemistry flashcards together or all of your biology flashcards together, you can just put that this 25-minute block is for biology. We're going to do flashcards. We're going to test them, or we're going to do brain dumps, or whatever it is that you are going to do with the cards that day. Actually write in those. So at the beginning of the week, at the beginning of the month, at the beginning of the semester, you can fill out a whole stack of these study session planners and then just schedule them throughout the week and make sure that you are switching up the different study activities. When you plan ahead and you assign study activities to each of these Pomodoro blocks and concepts to study to each of these Pomodoro blocks, then you are making sure that you are, first of all, studying everything. Second of all, reviewing everything, because spaced repetition is very important. And second of all, you're not wasting time because you've already planned all of your study activities right from the beginning of the week or the month or however often you want to plan them out. And so all you have to do is sit down and just do what you've already scheduled yourself to do. And that is super simple. So there we are. There we have it. I am going to be doing Friday is our next live stream. We're going to do a goal check-in, and we are going to do, our weekly goal check-in, and we are going to do another topic. Let me look at what the topic is. I've already scheduled it, but of course, you know me, one piece of information at a time. What are we doing? What are we doing on Friday? On Friday, we are doing, skimming and scanning. We're doing skimming and scanning on Friday. So we're talking about some more reading strategies again this Friday. Last week, of course, we did reading out loud versus study silently, reading aloud versus silently, and talked about that study session and that reading strategy. So you can go back and check that out. Otherwise, join me on Friday morning for our skimming and scanning. And goal setting. Everything that we did chat about is linked in the description already. If not, you can also hit me up on the socials and I can send you any of the resources directly. So if you do like this video, if you could like this video and subscribe to my channel, I put out new videos every week. We're doing a lot of live streams this month. And yeah, until Friday, I hope you have an amazing adventure.